Next, Trustee Tisinga, would you kindly present Resolution R 2047, supporting the continued efforts to resolve public safety concerns with the so-called Safety Act, and make the appropriate motion?
Yes, thank you, President Lamalani. At the top level of the Illinois crime sector, the criminal entrepreneurs include red light camera pioneers, utility company barons, and their paid legislators. And at the next level down from that, more than 100,000 gang members belonging to more than 60 organized gangs in Chicago every day need to decide what to steal, whom to threaten and kill, and how to do so with limited capital and scarce labor that might be removed from the market due to arrest and incarceration. These criminal entrepreneurs certainly support any changes to the criminal law that will preserve their capital by eliminating the per-crime amount of, say, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars that they have to pay in bail costs for the fraction of times they're apprehended. And they appreciate that their labor will be more available, if not misallocated, to serving pretrial detention times. The faster their workforce is back on the streets after an arrest, the more profitable their enterprise is. In Illinois, our criminals have their own legislative advocates and lobbyists who push to change laws for their specific benefit. For example, the hastily drafted Safety Act passed with little debate in the middle of the night, lowering the cost for any such gangs or independent criminal freelancers operating gypsy theft rings, crowd thefting events, jewelry store smash and grabs, carjacking activities, Oak Brook home invasion initiatives, Wrigleyville armed robberies, suburban catalytic converter recycling programs, pharmaceutical sales, protection rackets, and of course, prostitution and the suppression of rival gangs. All soon to be much more profitable thanks to no more bail, no more pretrial detention, and catch and release arrest requirements. And as economist Arthur Laffer points out, when you make something less expensive, you get more of it. With this new law, each police department in Illinois will now be operated for the benefit of our newest Illinois growth industry, our violent criminal class. This resolution calls on our governor and our General Assembly to reverse course and restore the primary goal of criminal law in Illinois, to preserve and protect public safety, and to make Illinois less dangerous for our residents and more dangerous and more expensive for criminals. Now is that time to reallocate the factors of police protection where they belong, on our side, not against us. I therefore move to approve Resolution R 2047, a resolution supporting continued efforts to resolve public safety concerns with the so-called Safety Act.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Manager?
Just a couple of comments. You know, I find it interesting that sponsors of this bill, supporters of this bill, now want to explain what they were thinking or how we misunderstood their intentions. Well, shouldn't it have been done during the process of approving it, instead of slamming it through at 3 o'clock in the morning with no debate and no discussion? You know, this is the reason that crime is on the rise. This is why we're dealing with it in DuPage and in Oak Brook, but now it's going to be statewide. I hope, I just don't have much confidence, but I hope that the governor does the right thing. But like with the red light camera, I don't think he will.
Any other comments? Asif?
This piece of legislation was not well thought out. It did not take into account the rights of all parties who are impacted by a criminal act, and it did not take into account the impact on public safety in the slightest way. There are some things that are good in this. I mean, the mandate for body cameras will give a clear picture of what happened. It'll avoid accusations of wrongdoing that are unfounded, and it will clearly show wrongdoing where it does take place. But it has to be fixed. And there's an underlying concept that somebody who commits a crime for which they would typically not receive a jail sentence shouldn't necessarily languish in jail awaiting trial, which isn't going to ultimately result in jail time. But this goes, the Safety Act goes way beyond that and eliminates cash bail for a whole host of serious crimes and does not allow for reasonable judicial discretion as to whether or not there is a safety risk from letting this individual out. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed. It's owed to the people of Illinois. It is owed to the law enforcement professionals to make them effective in doing their job and maintaining a deterrent to criminal activity. I fully support this resolution urging the legislature to examine this thing and fix it. And you just have to wonder why, when it was done over a year and a half ago, because it was done in a lame duck session. So it was right after an election 2 years ago, a November election 2 years ago, before the new legislature was sworn in. They had almost 2 years to try and fix this, and nobody's done so yet. It's terrible. We hope that us, along with other concerned communities and litigation by, I think it's 100 of the state's attorneys out of 102 counties, 100 of them have signed on to a lawsuit about this. Hopefully it'll affect a change to do something good rather than do something that is a detriment to public safety. So I fully support this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Before we actually take a vote, go ahead, Jim. Yeah.
Yes, soon after this bill's passage, House Speaker Chris Welch framed the criminal justice omnibus bill as part of a broader effort to remedy inequalities in light of the past year's reckoning of racial injustice. This all came on the heels of the advent of BLM. Looking in hindsight, we all got to see what a racket BLM is. The founders are being indicted. It was all a scam from the beginning. This was all part of the woke left to try to curry favor with their voters. Keep in mind now, Speaker Welch, his territory is in Oak Brook, and he was one of the big promoters of this bill. This is the worst law enforcement bill in the history of the United States. And this isn't just being covered in Illinois. This is all over the country now. Never have 102, I think there's 103 counties. I think Kim Foxx is the only state's attorney that isn't denouncing it. I think this is the only time they've had that type of majority, 102 out of 103 state's attorney speaking out against it. I'm happy to pass this resolution, as are so many other municipalities across the state.
Thank you. Before we take a vote on this, I actually just want to quickly thank Trustee Tsinga for your help on working on this resolution at my request. And Greg also, put in quite a bit of effort with this resolution. So it's a combination of Ed Tsinga and Greg, and moderated by our village attorney. Thank God we have a moderator who tones down the language a little bit, and I'm appreciative of that. Yeah, and the reason why this thing came up in my mind was because some of the residents are approaching me and asking me, thinking that I'm the most moderate of all, but I'm not. Who should we vote for? And there are some residents who are not sure, who are the better of the two candidates or three candidates running for a position. Now I can tell them with confidence, you vote for the person depending upon where that person stands on Safety Act. You can't go wrong. If you ask them, are you in favor of the Safety Act that was, as Asif mentioned, passed a year and a half ago at about 2 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock at night? Makes no sense to discuss a bill that they've been talking about, at 2 o'clock at night. You know there's something slimy going on when that's happening. And I think what the Village of Oak Brook stand would be on the Safety Act is what I tell the residents, go and ask the candidate. You go to their forums or their debates and ask them, where do you stand on Safety Act? and depending upon whether they are in favor or against it, you vote for that particular candidate. So I'm so happy that Trustee Jazinga at the last minute over the weekend when I asked him and Greg to come up with this resolution, and it's a beautiful product we have here, and I would hope that we'll get a unanimous support on this one. Anyone else wants to make a comment? Otherwise, Charlotte, you're on.
Trustee Youssef?
Yes.
Trustee Herman?
Yes.
Trustee Manzo?
Yes.
Trustee Nagel?
Yes.
Trustee Reddy?
Yes.
Trustee Teesinger?
Yes.
Unanimously carried.